Did want to start off again with that theme of everything that I've learned with losing people in my life. And as I mentioned, losing my dad in the towers was the first big checkpoint, but I've lost a fair amount of people in my life. I'm not trying to quantify it by what is considered to be a lot, but I've experienced death before my father. That was my first big one. I've lost friends, close friends, and I've been around it, but it's taught me everything. And when I say everything, I almost mean everything, except for the time I fell on my ass trying to do a pogo stick down a driveway. That taught me not to do that again, but you know what I mean. And to get it going, I did want to read a quote, 2 quotes specifically. One is from Viktor Frankl. He wrote Man's Search for Meaning. If you're not familiar with that book, I read it years ago, and he was in a concentration camp, and he wrote this book called Man's Search for Meaning that really stood out to me. And ironically, the second quote is going to come from Anne Frank. So this both relates to concentration camps. And my reason for mentioning that is because I can't, think of a more dire situation than surviving through a concentration camp. And just to go back to what I said from the beginning, this is going to be a rant, so bear with me if I'm all over the place. So I hope you have some fun with this, because I'm going to try to. But to preface the quote from Viktor Frankl, I mentioned Anne Frank because I was in Amsterdam a couple weeks ago, and one thing I really wanted to do that I was able to accomplish on my trip was go to the Anne Frank Museum. And one of the things I noticed was, having not read the book, which is something I have to do, which is absurd that I haven't read it, reading some of her quotes and lines, I was mesmerized, not only from the surroundings, just walking through the house and being there and having that visceral, emotional, energetic experience, understanding what really went on. Her words were so profound in a sense of her attitude, her perception of the situation, her willingness and ability to stay positive and see this experience totally different than I'm sure 99% of the people still haven't even, tried to perceive it in. This lens of being willing to see beauty, as you'll hear in the quote, and to stay as positive as possible during some of the most horrific times that you can imagine. And I relate that not so much to grief as much, but just the experience of suffering that I think we experience in this life that we call it. And so I'm going to read you 2 quotes to kind of set us off, even though we've been talking for a few minutes already, or I've been talking rather. No one's here talking to me. But I do want to start off with Viktor Frankl's quote, one of many. He says, "Everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way." And that one hits me hard because that is the one thing we can hold on to, is the way we have an attitude towards our perception, the way we see things. It's much easier said than done, but this is coming from a man that was surviving a concentration camp. And I don't want to compare situations. I'm not doing that. Someone that is willing to able to understand that in such a circumstance, to me, just applies to how we get through grief, how we get through loss, how we can get through life, how we can get through all this BS that we go through. I don't even want to call it BS because I think this is just life. And I think we understand this is what comes with it. And I'll get down the line of this conversation of maybe if I tap into what I believe happens after, but who knows what we chose before we came here. If we didn't, I don't know. That's up to you, not up to me. I just thought that was a powerful quote that I want to tap into, the idea of perception and the choice we have to respond to these things that happen to us in life. And a quick quote from Anne Frank. She says, "I don't think of all the misery, but of all the beauty that still remains." Like, come on. This girl is hiding in an attic before she died in such horrible circumstances, and she's not thinking about the misery, but all the beauty that still remains. And granted, her life came to an end, but nevertheless, she did not focus on the misery. And I think that is one of the biggest lessons that I've personally experienced, and that's why I resonated so much with these quotes, because they both seem to tie into the idea of perception. They both seem to tie into the idea of how we see things, how we respond. And that was a big thing with my experience with grief and loss, and witnessing how my mother handled it and my sisters and other people that I've seen go through grief. It's always the perception and what you choose to focus on. And I know it's dumbed down. It sounds very simple, but I truly think that's what it is. And I'm not saying it's just a flick of the finger or a snap of the wrist. I think I said that wrong, but you know what I mean? It takes time. I mean, I'm not saying you can't go through it. It's not going to be a rough ride for a very long time, but we do have that choice. And I think it comes to repetition. I think it comes to trying it and being open-minded and giving that a chance. You may not believe in the positive affirmations or the power of word, but I do. And I ask that maybe, not saying this is the answer, but this is, again, all coming from my personal perspectives. Everything I say in this podcast and when I have guests on, it's from personal perspectives, personal beliefs. You can choose to believe whatever you want. And that is exactly what I'm talking about. You can choose to believe whatever you want. And that doesn't just come from what I'm saying. That doesn't come from listening to someone that you disagree with. It comes from the perception of life and these experiences that we have. We have the power to see it as we see it. And I think that is defining our reality. And when we call it reality, I don't know what the hell is reality. real. All I know is we have that choice, and I think that's where it starts. And that is one of the first lessons that I want to talk about is the power to see things the way you want to see it, like Anne Frank did, like Viktor Frankl did. And Viktor Frankl talks about meaning and purpose. And the other quote that he has talking about that, which I want to tap into again, is when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. And that is the key thing. When you are no longer to change a situation, which happens more often than not when things happen, when you lose someone. When I lost my dad, I can't change that. I can't go back in time and tell him not to go to work that day. I can't change situations. All we can do is take the challenge to change ourselves. And it's hard to do that. I think, in certain situations, everything gets sucked out of you when you lose someone. When you lose someone that you love and you care about, you're almost a shell of yourself. And that may last forever for a lot of people, because putting the blame because something happened to them, yes, but at the same time, we do have to take accountability and responsibility for how we respond to things. Yes, certain things are unfair, quote unquote. Things happen for whatever reason. You can give it a reason. You don't have to give it a reason. And you can just play that card of it happened to me, whatever you got to do. I just don't choose that path. Yeah, I lost my dad. Yeah, I've lost friends. Yeah, I almost lost my mom last year. That's something maybe we can tap into, but it didn't happen to me. It's just, this is life. And maybe I'm being insensitive about it, but I think we do need to take responsibility for how we respond to these things, because again, the way we see things creates our reality. And I don't think you have to rush into it. Go through your little rabbit hole of darkness, whatever it takes. I'm not saying it's going to happen right away. It may happen down the line, but you have to also do it with a faith, regardless of what your faith is. Maybe you have no faith, but your own personal faith of that it's going to be okay. And know that you can come out the other side. And when you come out the other side, you're going to live with it. You're not just coming out of the other side and poof, it's gone. But again, it comes down to a choice. And the idea of perception that I've ran through the ringer already to start this episode is so important. And I don't have the answers of how to do that. I personally, myself, meditation and focusing on that, the positive affirmations, almost fake it till you make it, because that repetition does work. That repetition, if you think about like grief in general, going through life, pay attention to the way you talk to yourself. Pay attention to the thoughts. If you really start paying attention to that when you're in a good mood or a bad mood, you'll see similarities. You'll see consistencies and patterns. Maybe if you're not feeling good, you're depressed because of whatever. If you start really focusing on how you're speaking out loud, how you're talking to yourself, which all I think ties to the perception that we choose to see, you might start noticing, oh wait, I am really focusing and saying some negative shit. I am really talking to myself in a way that isn't really serving me, and it's only feeding the frenzy of whatever mood you may be in, if that makes sense. So pay attention to the way you see yourself, the way you talk to yourself, the way you talk out loud. And it may be silly because, I'm not saying you have to, like my buddy Jorge talks in his book, The Power of the Word, you don't have to lie to yourself. If you're not feeling good, you don't have to pretend that you're happy, but you just be careful the way you choose your words. Instead of saying, I'm really sad right now, which is okay to say. I'm not saying don't say it. It's okay to say that, but at some point, pay attention to how you're talking to yourself. And I think those words and realizing that as I grew up through my own experience of life, it does add up. It's like going to the gym, which I've said a million times. When you start doing those curls, you start doing those repetitions, aka the repetitions, the words that we say out loud and say to ourselves, you're not just gonna get massive biceps immediately. It takes time. It takes months, days, years, whatever. But eventually one day you're going to look yourself in the mirror and be like, oh shit, I actually feel good because you built that repetition and those habits to speak more gently and focus on the positive. And again, back to those same quotes. These people are in the most dire situations, and she was able to see the beauty of it, even though obviously you can look back at it more logically. There was no beauty. Of course, there was the worst situations ever. There's murders and killings. What beauty is there? But she chose to see the beauty, see the potential of the future, and focus on what she had right in front of her, which was not much, but she did. And so when I look at people like that, which you can find, plenty of people that are going through horrible situations that choose those visions and choose their perception, it does make a difference. It gives you more of an opportunity to find opportunity to get out of it. Tying into the perception, I think it comes with a focus of being open-minded. Being really open-minded, because if you're just pigeonholed into one perspective, you're just really sucked down a tunnel vision aspect of things are bad, things are this, and then you choose what you see. It goes back to perception again. You got to be open-minded. If you don't believe in one way, give it a shot, something that maybe is just polar opposite against your own paradigm of beliefs. Let's say you don't believe in the afterlife. It's just one silly example. just open your mind. Maybe be like, hey, maybe there is. I don't know. Let's open your horizon to that. Because once we open our ears and our intuition and our body, which I believe, to those possibilities, you're not shutting it off. You're opening a door and you're just letting it be there. And maybe you'll be surprised at what comes up. So I think when it comes to going through grief, I think having an open mind, trying new things, all ties together. Because having an open mind, you might find new things that work for you, and you have to try new things to see what works for you. Maybe it's not therapy. Maybe it's talking. Maybe it's drawing. Maybe it's painting. Maybe it's believing in the afterlife. Whatever it may be, you won't know until you have an open mind and just try it and believe even when you don't believe. And I think that's where it all kind of comes together. And I've said a million times from my experience, losing my father, I found it to be two paths, many paths, but two focused paths I've spoke about in the past. It can easily be fear or gratitude. And once again, it goes back to the negative and the positive and what you focus on. I could easily be fearful that, okay, this actually happened to me. My dad was killed in the towers. I could be fearful that now at a young age, I'm aware that, oh man, now I'm really aware of death. I'm going to lose my mother, my sisters, and it can happen at any moment. And now I can I was and kind of still think about it, but not from a place of fear. I'm not like, oh my God, neurotic, and I might lose someone, I got to suffocate them. No, it comes from a place of gratitude that I still have them. I'm aware of their existence more than ever. I'm aware of how each moment matters. And that is, again, a choice of fear or gratitude. And it goes back to those choices and perceptions and the way we see things. But having that realization, I think, comes down to contemplation, thinking about it, really laying it out and seeing it the way I want to see it. I'm lucky, and I don't take credit for me getting through what I've gotten through. Not saying it's the hardest thing in the world compared to what other people have gone through, as I've already aforementioned. I was lucky enough to have my family, have my mother, have my sisters, have my brother-in-law, my friends' fathers. I had that, and I know a lot of people don't have that, so I think you will have a more challenging task ahead of you to find it out. Maybe if you have less people around you, but grab on any opportunity you can. Some people have more opportunities. Some people have virtually what seemingly seems like no opportunities, but find any opportunity you can, no matter how small, to grab onto it and take it and take action. And it goes back to the responsibility and the steps you have to take personally. It comes with accountability at some point. Again, sit on the couch, watch whatever BS reality show you want to do, sulk, sad, feel it. But again, feel it. And at some point, you got to get your ass up, whatever that may mean. And I don't have the answers. It's all up to you. I can't give you a playbook. I can only tell you from my experience, my perspectives, but I ask that you be open-minded to what I'm saying. You may not agree. I may come off as whatever. You may not like the way I'm coming off, but this is what I'm giving you. I'm talking in front of a camera just to kind of keep it as real as I can, tell you what I've learned, take it with a grain of salt, maybe take nothing, but be open-minded to what I'm saying. Be open-minded to what other people are saying. Be open-minded to you and have faith that inside you is enough. We focus on these external factors. This happened to me, that happened, so-and-so, this, that, the other. But again, what Viktor Frankl said, we are challenged to change ourselves when we can't change a situation. Can't change the situation, the happening, but you can change how we respond, therefore changing your life. And there are so many people to look towards. Inspiration. It's like the 4-minute mile. No one was breaking the 4-minute mile, so they saw one person do it. So maybe latch on to an inspirational story of someone that is where maybe you want to be, and then you could run that 4-minute mile. Find the inspiration, find the opportunity, grab whatever you can, and just know that wherever you are right now in your grief, if you know someone in it, it's okay. Wherever you are. I don't care if you're in the depths of hell or you're making your way through, wherever you are, just that's okay. That is okay. Wherever you are. You don't have to tell me where you are, and it's okay. But at some point, try. Whatever that means, take that action, go for it. And there are experiences that I cannot relate to. There are things that I haven't experienced that may be way more painful, especially to you, eye of the beholder. But I just believe that anyone and everyone, we all have the ability. Some people may have it tapped in a little easier than others for whatever reason. I don't know what that means, but we can all get through anything. I really believe that. Not everyone does for whatever reason, but I think it all comes down to everything I've already discussed. And I'm not saying that's the answer. I would continue to learn. I might do this episode a year from now and have a completely different perspective. That's because to me, I'm open-minded. I want to think for myself. I want to be open to ideas, but again, I want to think to myself and make my own decisions. And I think this life, we have the opportunity to make those decisions. And again, much easier said than done. Much easier said than done, but it's been done. People are doing it. People have done it. You know, you want to curate it to how you respond to it and what feels good with you, but sometimes you don't want to change what's fixed. You don't want to fix what's not broke and use other people's methods that may work for you, but it goes back to trying different things. And I think getting out of any situation, it takes an open mind. It takes a willingness to change and be malleable to your plans, because life will throw you a shit sandwich when all you want is a croissant with butter. That was weird to say, but I think that actually made sense. And I feel like I took that from someone. Someone on my episode said that. Whatever. Man, again, I'm going to look back at my notes right now because clearly if it taught me one thing, it taught me a sick sense of humor. And that's not for everyone, but to me, laughter is the best medicine. If we're talking about more things that I've learned, I'll tell you so much that humor comes in handy. And I'd say we have to laugh through it all. And I don't want to take it all too seriously. I think there's moments that are more serious than others for sure. And you have to guide your way through that and be respectful of others. But I don't want to take this all too seriously. I know the moments of when to be respectful and when to be serious. But if I find an opportunity to slip in a joke and crack a smile, that's going to do it. Because I spoke to someone yesterday about raising your vibration, all this stuff that I kind of understand, but not really. I believe in it. Laughter is such a beautiful thing. It makes you, for a moment, it just makes you happy, even if it's just for a moment. But that is a high vibrational thing, laughing. So why, when we're in a low vibrational thing of going through grief or sadness, to me, I'm throwing in a joke. You might not like it, but it breaks the ice if you do it right. Obviously, don't be disrespectful in a moment that someone else might not handle it well. But I can think of a moment when last year, my mother was in the hospital after cardiac arrest. Mom, if you're listening, I'm telling the story. Sorry, I may have told it already, maybe not. And Ken, I apologize too. But this is what it is. We're in the ICU after she came out of it. And, she was very fresh out of it, so she wasn't all quite there. But my mom was speaking and moving, and it was a glorious moment to see that my mom's still here for right now. It was amazing. And, her memory wasn't there yet. It took a while to get her memory back. She just came back from a traumatic situation in the hospital, still in the ICU at this point. And we mentioned Ken, my mom's partner, and she was like, Ken? Who's Ken? And we all look around. Our heart just stopped. We're like, oh my God, she doesn't remember Ken. What is going on? And she just slowly looks at Ken and just hysterically laughs. Amidst this ice in the middle of the ICU, she's still plugged in. She just nearly died a day ago. And she cracked a joke. And that just lit up the room between me and my sisters and Ken. And we laughed and we had a moment of relief. And that is the power of laughter, the power of finding the light in the darkness. It may not be laughter, but you have to latch on to any opportunity you can to raise that vibration. Whether you're a vibrational freak or not, I don't know, but you call it whatever you want. Just bring light into the moment, vibrations, this, that, or the other. It's so powerful. Again, perception, choice, to look for those moments and bring it up because we have that choice to do that. And again, that joke might not be for everyone, but that moment was hilarious. That was the greatest roast of all time, in the ICU at least, let alone just my mother's sense of humor is so brilliant. There's a couple little points I want to bring in. I already said it, but be malleable with our plans. There's nothing that smacks you more in the face than loss, than death. Especially even if it's 9/11, even if it's someone just died instantaneously in a car accident, even if it's someone that got cancer and died slowly. What shakes you up and what changes your plans more than death? It changes everything. We think we have these plans. I think it's this. We say we have plans. I say we make plans. You make plans, sure, but be malleable to change because that is life. Life is change. Be comfortable with change because everything changes. Plans is just a very loose word inherently to me because we make plans, but we have to adapt. We have to be comfortable with change. And I believe that the gold of life is in being uncomfortable. Being uncomfortable is something that we should do every single day, if you ask me, because that is where the lessons are. That is where you learn about yourself. That is where you grow. That is where you get prepared for the future events. Because everything changed for me when I was 12 years old, and that prepared me to handle the situation of almost losing my mom and going through that hell week with my family. And I look back at it, and the way we flowed together, the mantras that we had, our positive attitude towards it, our belief, our strength, our comfortability in being uncomfortable came from a prior experience. And those prior experiences of being uncomfortable shape your life. So don't run away from being uncomfortable because when it gets uncomfortable, your body naturally wants to get the hell out of there. Of course, but stick with it. Realize when you are uncomfortable, like, oh shit, I'm uncomfortable right now. I'm gonna jet for something comfortable. Like, wait a minute, hold on. I remember what that weird dude, Dead Talks guy said about being uncomfortable. I'm gonna stay here because this is where the gold is. But believe that. The gold is in being uncomfortable. That is where we learn everything. And then there's no better feeling coming out of the other side than getting out from underneath something so heavy. And when you come out the other side, like grief or whatever it may be, you feel good. You're like, I did that. I got through that. And I feel like we all have to have a little warrior inside us. We have to have a little warrior, a little competition, even when it feels like there's nothing to hold on to because you just lost everyone in your life. We are here. I don't know why we are here, but we are here to experience. We are here to learn. We are here to feel all the emotions. We are here to be there for each other. We are here to learn, and we are here to mess up. We are here to mess up, and I've said it over and over again, give yourself grace because we are all human. I don't have the answers. This is just my little weird story that I wanted to share with you, what I've learned through my experiences of life and as it relates to losing my father and all the people that I've lost in my life. And it all comes with, again, let's just recap that a little bit. Perception. We have that choice. We have that choice. And I really want to harp on that because we may not have all the power in the world, but again, with that one freedom that Viktor Frankl says, we have the ability to control our attitude towards whatever it may be. And once you start learning how to do that, it becomes a little bit easier for the next, fun little tidbit that may show up in your life, because that's going to happen. Life's going to have hiccups, and being happy isn't consistency. Being happy isn't constant. You can be content, but happiness isn't happy every moment. But I think part of that being happy is the ability of how quick you can respond to the shit that life comes to us. The shit that life comes to us. The shit that life throws to us. I think once you start noticing your responses to certain unfavorable situations, whether it's in traffic, whether it's missing a flight, whatever it may be, once you start catching yourself responding a little quicker instead of banging your head against the wall like you might have a couple years ago, now you're like, okay, that happened. Now, how do I respond? How do I find the answers, whatever that may be, even though I don't know if we ever find the answers. And that is a good quantifiable measurement to our growth, I think. Like when I find myself getting frustrated I feel like I used to get frustrated in traffic. Now I don't really get frustrated. Even it might be for a split second, that jerk off just cut me off. Okay, cool, he cut me off. Maybe he's in a rush. Maybe his wife's pregnant in the back seat. We just can't see her. I don't know. Maybe he's an asshole. Sure. But okay, he cut me off. And if you're getting angry at that, you're angry at something else. And that's where we start learning. That's where we start digging deeper. That's where we start having open-mindedness to who we are, let alone what happens outside. Because things are going to happen outside. And I think we got to just go through this world like the feather in Forrest Gump. Wherever it's going to take us, we're going to be open to it. We're going to be open to it. And if we have that open-mindedness, that open heart, being willing to just be, take a breath, things become a little easier. I'm not saying they're going to be easy. This life isn't easy. This life is suffering. And we are all suffering in different ways. And it's the hardest thing you've ever gone through is the hardest thing you've ever gone through. So one person's suffering may on the surface not seem as hard as yours, but hey, if that's the only thing they've ever gone through, that's going to be hard as shit for them. So I think we got to live life with compassion. I think we got to live life with love. And that is the last quote that I want to read. I might still go on a tangent after this. This is kind of fun. So hopefully you guys are still with me, because I do want to tap into some other things, but maybe I will, maybe I won't. But one of my favorite books of all time is The Sirens of Titan by Kurt Vonnegut. Spoiler alert, kind of. I'm going to read this quote. Not really. You can still read the book even knowing this quote, but feel free to skip this part if you plan on reading Kurt Vonnegut's Sirens of Titans, but you can still read it with this quote. It's a great quote. Do you realize a purpose of human life, no matter who is controlling it, is to love whoever is around to be loved? Love, baby. Love. That is it. And I know there's some people that are very hard to love. And I think there's different variations to that. Like there's some people that, do some really messed up stuff in the world. I'm not saying go love that psychopath, but we can do things with love. And I think doing things with love doesn't mean to be in love or really love that person. You can do things with love. And I think that is such a purpose to this life of ours, is to do things with love. You don't have to be in love with that thing or that person, but to do it with love means doing it with compassion, doing it with an open-mindedness again, and a way of perception to perceive that person's situation and to be able to understand people while you disagree. And I think that is a big point again when it comes to grief in a family dynamic or the people around you, because you can disagree greatly with the way people are handling their grief, the way they say things to you when you're grieving, and you get offended by someone saying, oh, I can't imagine, oh, now I'm on an island because someone was trying to be nice, but they said the wrong words. They're doing their best. You can understand people while disagreeing. And I think today is a big thing, is everyone's disagreeing. There's a divisiveness, and we could just try to understand and disagree. That's okay. And this is very glazing over many different variations to very complicated conversations and issues. I get that. I don't want to keep you here for an hour of me ranting nonsense, but I think I know nothing. And I think that's fine. Once we realize we know nothing, with the open-mindedness to learn, then everything is this is life. Find excitement in everything. I really tried to, I've said before in a prior post, we can heal the inner child, but never lose the inner child. Like people always tell me, you're like a kid. And most of the time people say it, they're not calling me immature, because I believe I'm mature in many ways from like an emotional intelligence standpoint. I think, not perfect, but I feel like, I've grown. But I don't want to lose that childlike wonderment. And I think we have to go back to that. It's like we need to heal the inner child, because I feel like a lot of the stuff we deal with today as grown humans, I look at grown people throwing tantrums, like again in traffic, I'm like, oh man, you were just a grown-ass child with armpit hair. You still have shit to work out, but work that shit out. But let's all be children. Let's have fun. When I look at my nephews and my nieces, they are just most present, using their imagination, seeing the world how they want to see it. We can do the same thing with more bills to pay. But outside of that, we can do the same shit. Let's just be children, have fun, loosen up a little bit. And when life gets hard or whatever may happen, fear hasn't happened. We're worrying about shit that hasn't even happened. Like Bill Burr said, he said, relax a little bit. Worry if it happens, worry about it then. But in the meantime, breathe, Choose to see things in a positive light. Force your way to do that until it becomes a habit. And I haven't mastered this. I feel like I understand the template, but I'm still working on it. And it takes time, it takes effort. And there is weird comfort in misery. Again, the Happy who I had on my podcast, which the episode released after this, he's like, there are payoffs. There are payoffs that come with being depressed and happy, the attention, XYZ. And like, that is a weird place to be, but it's easier. I think it's easier to be in that deep hole than it is to actually make the effort to be out of it. But just know that you can, know that someone wants you to. I don't know who they are, but I promise you someone wants you to. And if you can't find someone that wants you to, I don't even know you. If you're listening, I want you to, because it's all better shared. There's all enough for everyone to eat. We can all live a better life in some capacity. There is enough for everyone to eat. So root each other on. Love whoever there is to be around to be loved. Live life with love. And let's try it all. Let's experience whatever we can experience. And I understand some people start this life off with, on second base, and some people might be on first base. But as Billy Carson said in a prior episode, there are opportunities. Some people have more, but look for every opportunity, no matter how small, and take action towards that. To kind of cap this off, if you are still here, you are still listening, I can't tell you how grateful I am to have any listeners, have any listeners in this podcast, because this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. There's a lot of things I want to do. I have a lot of plans for creative outlets and other business things, but this is it. I want to have this Dead Talks multimedia company that normalizes the conversation around death. I get to meet awesome people. I get to hear your stories in the comments. I get amazing messages reaching out to me directly, and I appreciate every one of them. If I haven't got back to you, I'm sorry. But this is what I want to do, and I'm doing it, and I'm grateful for it. And I just want to thank you all for being a part of it. There is so much more to come. And do I plug things now? I'm looking like for someone to be in this room with me. No one's here, but I do want to plug again, as part of that mission that I have and my passion for this project that is Dead Talks. I want to thank everyone that has shared, that has, engaged in the content, who has written reviews. The people, again, I mentioned it before, they're joining the Patreon. So if you are listening, consider joining the Patreon for $5. I'm trying to give you guys as much value for that Patreon as much as I can. And I know it's not all about the money, but in order for me to stop doing my day job, I need to make money off this. I want to give you the service of Dead Talks, but this is the reality of it. That's why I have this Patreon, to hopefully get some supporters. If you do enjoy the show, it does mean the world. Just to, whether you want the extra content, the ad-free content, or you just want to support the show, it really means a lot. So please consider doing that. And as I mentioned already, the reviews, if you do like the show, write those reviews, because it does help me algorithmically get up there. But I hope you enjoyed this episode. Let me know if I should do this more. Should I do these solo episodes? Is this boring you? It's only been about 32 minutes, so I was trying to keep it short and sweet. I would like to do these episodes again, because sometimes I like talking and sometimes I like silence. But this is not one of those silence days. So before we get out of here, I want to just tell you that whoever you are, wherever you're listening, whatever you're going through, that's okay. And it's going to be okay. And I want you to decide right now to choose that it's going to be okay. Even if it doesn't feel like it's going to be. Right now, look yourself in the mirror, make that weird-ass eye contact with yourself, and tell yourself it's going to be okay. And it's okay not to know how. Just know the end. Know that it's going to be okay. And with that belief alone, everything on the way is going to figure itself out. Believe that. Dead Talks. Peace. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Dead Talks. Please do not forget to hit the subscribe button and also the notification bell. That'll give you updates as to when we post a new video, more episodes, and more content in general. We are streaming on all the major podcast platforms, including Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and all that. And also find us on Instagram at Dead Talks Podcast or www.deadtalks.net. Thank you so much.